what I'm doing today is I'm making a year at a glance. So our district always provided the year at a glance on our curriculum portal, but I always took that guideline that they gave us and I mapped it out in even more detail from my specific needs with my specific lessons, how long I wanted to work on that unit exactly. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm basically taking what my district gives me, putting it on paper so that I can map it out to match exactly what I feel is necessary in my classroom. And then I'm going to take that and put it on computer. If you haven't heard, I am moving overseas for my husband's job, so in the classroom is not really in the cards for me right now. So this is a process I've used probably since my second year of teaching. The process I'm going to go through today is a little bit different from what I've done in the past, but you know, each year you get better and you learn, and so this is my improved strategy on how I would plan for the whole year, what I would do this year if I was walking back into the classroom. So let me show you some of the things I have here with me today. Okay, so if you can see right here on my counter, I've got my big chart paper, and I'll tell you what we're going to use that for in just a minute. I've got my lesson planner, so this is like my Bible. I always have I'm always looking, if I'm teaching the same grade level, looking at the lessons from the year before. Okay, sorry, I know I just like totally butchered that, but I always like to have my lesson planner around from the previous year so I can refer back to timing and all that kind of stuff. I have printed out my TEKS. I'm in Texas, so I've always used TEKS, but your Common Core standards, whatever standards it is that you use, I've got a copy of those. Of course, my Flair pens, some Mr. Sketch markers. I've got sticky notes. I'll tell you what these are for in just a minute. And then this is my year at a glance from last year. Now you can see it's very short and only one page. That's because it's from last year. And as the year went on, I like tore pieces of paper off like, yes, we're almost to the end. So this is all I have left without printing anything else off for today. So let me show you what we're going to do. Okay, so this is a process you could use really for any, it doesn't just have to be for in the classroom. In fact, I use this process for planning out my business and what I'm going to be doing for the Simply Organized Teacher over the coming months. So this process doesn't have to be confined strictly to lesson planning, but I think it's a great way to kind of I'm a visual person, so to get everything out on paper. Now, if you're listening to this through the podcast, I will try and talk through and explain as best as I can what I'm doing, but I know that you're probably listening while you're driving or walking the dogs or working out or something, so just try to visualize with me, and then you can head over to the blog to see pictures or go to YouTube to watch the actual video of this podcast episode. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a big grid out on my paper outlining the year. By the way, the dogs are here, so you might hear them. Milo's in his perch on his chair just hanging out. Scout's going to be in and out. She likes to sunbathe. Okay, so I'm just going to outline every month of the year. So I'm going to start, I just got a big white piece of butcher paper. And I'm not making this any sort of perfect. This is just going to kind of be my starting point. I'm going to take this and put it on the computer eventually. So I'm not going to be super particular about how perfect this is. This is more just for me. And this is something that you can do on your own, or it's something it would be really good to do with your team. But if your team maybe doesn't plan together or isn't willing to, I still think it's a great strategy for you to map out your whole year at the beginning, or whenever you're watching this, map out your whole year so that way you know what's coming and when it's coming. Right now I'm outlining the frame for my chart. Okay, so what I've got here is I just drew out a really rough sketch of a calendar, and next I'm going to go in and I'm going to put all of the months of the year in the classroom. Alright, so most of us start in August, which I actually don't think I like how big I wrote that, so I'm going to write it smaller in the top corner. I'm writing everything in black because I'm going to color code all of the, well, I'll tell you how I'm going to color code in a minute. Okay, so now that I've got all the months on here, August through June, I am going to now go through with my black marker. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to pick out my color coding. That's what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to use my flares for this because they're a little bit thinner, and so they'll be easier to write with. I want want to make sure that I put holidays on here because I think that's a really big, important, especially in older grades. For me, I always forgot about like St. Patrick's Day or the 100th day of school. And not that those are really big deals you need to celebrate in class, but I remember always like walking out in the hallway and seeing that a teacher did some kind of writing something that was related to the holiday, and I was always so mad at myself because I forgot to include it. So I'm going to go ahead and take orange, and I'm going to use orange to write all of my month themes or holidays on each month section. Okay, so I went ahead and chose my color coding, which I know it's kind of hard to read, but there's orange right there. That's going to be holidays, school celebration, month themes. Blue is math, and then like a purpley fuchsia colors language arts, science green, and light purple is social studies. So that's going to help me color code on each month. I'm going to kind of write whatever units I need to cover during that month or whatever TEKs or any special projects I want to do that month in that specific subject. I can write it in that color. So like I said, I'm going to go through and map out themes, school celebrations, holidays, and my orange for each month. So obviously for August is back to school. So I want to make sure that things I'm doing wrap around back to school. September, and I'm just writing it up here in the very top, right next to where I wrote the month, because I want to leave the majority of the space down below for each subject area. So September, we've got Labor Day. I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of. October is Halloween. Again, if you could see how I'm writing, I'm just like jotting. Nothing is super neat about this because, like I said, this is just for me or just for my team, and then I'm going to take it and make it prettier here in a little bit. All right, so I went through with my orange, and I wrote down any holidays that I wanted to be mindful of, or for example, the school I was at always had a fundraising sun run event in February, so I went ahead and wrote that down on here. So that was step one, just laying out, mapping out the year. That's probably the easiest part of this whole process. So we laid out our year. Step two is now we want to take what either the district gives us as their year at a glance and write that down and map that out on our calendar, or take the actual standards and figure out what are we going to be teaching and when are we going to be teaching it. So this is going to be a little bit more time consuming, especially if you're in a district that doesn't provide a curriculum with a pacing guide for you to follow. So I'm going to take the pacing guide that I have always used in the past and write out, I'm not going to take the whole time to write out every single subject, but I'm just going to take the pacing guide and map out what units I'm going to be covering each month in math. I'll do math because that's my favorite subject to teach. All right, again, hard to read because I'm writing so small, but I'll post pictures on the blog for you to see. But I've gone through with my blue marker because that is what I chose for math. I had to make sure that was correct. And actually looked online at the curriculum pacing guide that the district provides, and I mapped out each unit. I wrote down, for example, let's see, right here in September, they're starting place value, number sense, all that stuff. On the pacing guide, it says 15 days. Well, I know from experience in second grade that they're going to need a little bit longer than that because not only are they, having to learn the material, but they're having to learn how to be in school again. So I put 15 days in parentheses because that's what the district says, but then I went ahead and put in second parentheses what I feel is to be a little bit more appropriate for the amount of time needed. I will say that I think it's really important that you follow the guidelines your district is giving you. However, I think it's more important to be mindful, especially if you are a teacher who's been in the classroom for more than a year or two and you kind of know what to expect from your kids on certain units. I think it's okay to have some authority there and extend if you need to. You've got to also remember there's going to be tests in here. That would be another really good thing to go on here and add if I knew the dates that the district was expecting. For example, in my district that I worked in, across the grade level during this 1 or 2 weeks, the end of unit or end of 9 weeks assessments were to be given. So putting those on here to be mindful of that, because that's going to take a day or two at a time to administer the assessment and then possibly review it. So those are good things to put on here. I always had them on my little paper one. I would always put when the assessment was, so that way I could be intentional about planning for it. Okay, so I just finished up step 2. I would go through and do that for each subject. Now, some months you're going to cover more than 1 unit. So I wrote, here in September you can see I've got unit 1 for 15 to 20 days, and then I've got unit 2 started. But I clearly didn't think that through, because I would think I would need some more unit 2 over here, and I would need to add that. I can go back and fix that. Okay, so now we're into step 3, which I think is the most fun, because I bet I know you, and I know that you spend a lot of time on Pinterest, a lot of times on Teacher Pay Teachers, finding all these great resources, and then it comes time to teach it, and you're like, I don't remember what I bought, I have all this stuff, I don't use it. So this is where the fun comes in, and this is where the little sticky notes come in. So what I would do next is little sticky notes, or if you don't have little sticky notes, take big ones, just cut them in half, doesn't matter, and go through your resources on Teachers Pay Teachers or on your computer drive and write them down in color code, what fun products you've bought that you really want to include. It doesn't mean you're going to include them, it's just to help you be mindful and remember that you actually went and bought that, because I know that for me, like, I would buy a bunch of stuff over the summer, or I would buy it when I wasn't about to teach it, and then I would forget that I had it, and then it just kind of sat there useless. So take your sticky notes, go through, write down your resources, and then we're going to stick them all over for each unit. All right, so I just went through my computer, my planner, and my Teacher Pay Teachers store, and all that, or not store, my Teachers Pay Teachers dashboard, and found some things that I would want to make sure to include if I was planning for math this year. Now, remember, I'm not going back to the classroom next year, or this year, so I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really find that many things, because I don't actually have to plan, and that's kind of exciting. But, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe that wasn't very fair. Very nice of me. I'm sorry, because I know you're busy trying to plan. Anyways, I went and found some math things for each of the units, and I'm going to just sticky note them on here real quick. I also found, when I was doing that, not just based on subject, but based on holiday, like I found a St. Patrick's math problem packet. So I went ahead and wrote that down so that way I can be intentional about remembering to use that when St. Patrick's time comes around. Okay, so I just went through and added my sticky notes on here. Now remember, there's not a ton, because I just did one subject, just a few. But if you were teaching all 4 subjects, you would need to go through each one. And I would recommend going subject by subject, okay, go all through math, go through all the units of math, find all the resources, sticky note them on here, write the units on here. Now I'm going to go to language arts next, go through all the units, write them on here, go through Teachers Pay Teachers, your computer files, all that. Go kind of batch it and go by subject, so that way your brain is all in one area. And then maybe come back and do holidays for each month, activities you have. But just trying to keep your mind all in one space instead of shifting around. Okay, so you can see I've got a few sticky notes on here. Sorry, I'm trying to show this so that you can see it. But the purpose of the chart is just to get everything out here on paper so you can see what all you're working with. Because the next step that you're going to do is we're going to go to the computer. We're actually going to create our year at a glance on, you can do it on Google Drive, on Word, doesn't matter. But we're going to go to Google Drive and type it up. That way we can print it out. It stayed in the back of my planner all year long, along with my TEKS. And you can see here, I printed out my TEKS for each subject, and I went through and highlighted them as I made sure they were on my year at a glance, so that obviously I know that the district is making sure everything's covered, but that's just my OCD way of ensuring that everything that the state of Texas is expecting me to do has made it onto my year at a glance. So that's what this is for. But anyways, all this stayed in my lesson planner all year long. I pulled it out every week when me and my partner would sit down to plan, and it would just kind of help me keep track of where we are. So next I'm going to show you my year at a glance. I'm going to get on my computer, do a screen share with you, and show you what it looks like and how you can make yours. Here we are looking at my year at a glance from last year. So you can see I've got a bunch of columns here. The 9 weeks that we're on, what specific week it is, the dates. Notes, this is where I put in, remember how we took the sticky notes and wrote down like special holidays or anything like that? This is where I noted that in my year at a glance. We've got the different subjects I taught, reading, writing, phonics, and math. I also included science and social studies, but you'll notice there isn't much over here because I actually didn't teach those things. This was more just for me to be aware of what was going on, and that way I could like incorporate it into my language arts stuff. So if we just kind of take a look, you can see the first couple weeks I'm doing beginning of year stuff. You'll notice there is bold in each column. Those are the unit titles. So that's when I actually decided I wanted to start the unit. And then here is where I would go and list down specific things I wanted to do, whether it was the standard I wanted to do, or sometimes in some instances I'm trying to find an example. Like for example here, I wanted to do bats and Stella Luna. Like that's an actual thing that I wanted to use. You'll notice that some of these boxes are grayed out. That was just so that way I knew that was the start of a new 9 weeks. The yellowish orangish color is to indicate a holiday or a break. You can see here that I just mapped out each week really specifically, not really specifically, but pretty specifically what I was going to do, resources I would need. That way I could have it all year long. And if you'll notice up here, there's tons of stars with an edit date because I literally was going in and editing this thing on a pretty frequent basis. And so yeah, that is the year at a glance that I use, how I formatted it. I'll go back up here at the top so you can see the titles again. So if you want to make your own, I think you would find it really, really helpful. So you just watched how to make the year at a glance on computer. So step 6 is really just to come back and revisit it throughout the year. I edited and updated mine probably every 4 to 6 weeks because, you know, teaching, things get off and everything is behind. So I did it on Google Drive. It was nice because I could go in and edit it. It was shared with my team members. They could, even if they didn't want to use it, they could at least still have access to it and see what I was doing when I was doing it. For review, let's talk about how to curriculum map and plan for the upcoming year. There's 6 steps. Step 1, you want to get a big piece of paper, lay it out, draw out all the months, and this is going to be your starting point to map out the whole year. Step 2, you're going to go online and you're going to either find your curriculum map guide that the district gives you, or you're going to print off your standards or your TEKs, and you're going to go through and map them out and put them on your big chart for each month, what you're doing, what units, what subjects that you're talking about each month. Number 3, remember this is the one I said was fun. This is when you're going to get on your teacher dashboard. You're going to go through your files. You're going to go through your lesson plan from last year, and you're going to just brain dump all of the things that you want to do this year, all the resources that you have. You're going to write them on little sticky notes. Step 4, you're going to put them all over this baby. It's going to be full of sticky notes. Step 5, that's when you're going to head to the computer and you're going to type in your year at a glance in a chart or a table that you can carry with you all year long. And then step 6 is what you're going to be doing all year long, which is revisiting, re-editing, updating, fixing it to match what you need at that particular time. All right, guys, thank you all so much for sticking with me through this. I hope that it made lots of sense to you, and I hope that it helps you. Remember, you can use this for your classroom. You can use this for planning out committees or vertical teams that you're on in your school. You can use it for personal stuff. So really, it's just an idea that you can use anywhere, but this is how I've used it for curriculum